new venue. Thanks for everyone who made it down here. For just everyone's awareness, bathrooms, the ones here that are nearby, unfortunately, are down right now. So if you need to use a bathroom, this building right here to the right, just go towards the end of the building where you'll see the water fountain with the filtration system. Those bathrooms, there are bathrooms right there that you can use. And before we get things started, Auntie Carol wanted to say a quick prayer.
Thank you. We'll let the prayer group do the pulley tonight. I want to share the Lord's grace and glory with everybody, and this is the way that I feel that we can share for all of us.
Okay, Lord, we bow our hearts before you tonight, knowing, Father God, that you're omniscient. It says that that's part of your name, that you know everything, and we don't, and we admit that, Lord God. But you see men and women here that have turned their eyes towards you, that have bowed their knees, that have gone into your holy places of worship. And so we look to you tonight, Lord God, saying, we're your children, and you say we're to come as little children, not thinking that we know, Father God, but you will take care. You say in your word we're not to be worried or anxious about anything, but in everything, and it's hard to say that, in everything, even in a disaster, or to say thank you. And I don't know how we should be doing that. Someday we'll understand, but we thank you, Father God, for taking us through this fire, for bringing us into a place where we can say, my God is a restorer. He says he will restore the years that the locusts have eaten, that he can redeem the times, and we're asking, Lord God, that you redeem the times. We have an election coming up. We're asking during this election, Lord God, that your men and women would be acting with righteousness, and that they would help this community, Lord, this island. We lay ourselves before you and say we are grateful for all we've had. We've had a year or more of lots of free things, Lord God, and we're grateful for that. We thank you for every man and woman that's here. Keep them safe, Lord God. We ask that you would fill them with hope, Lord God, and give them a faith that passes even understanding. And we put ourselves before you and ask that you would bring everybody home safe. You protect the children and our schools and this entire community, the police department, the people on the roads. We just ask your grace and goodness. And we ask everything in your precious name. And I thank you for an opportunity to stand here with Uncle, who has given such sweetness in prayer. In your precious name. And all God's people said.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As always, we want to remind you to call 211 for disaster case management help. The number down there is for if you're outside of the state, 877-275-6569. And as always, want to remind you to take care of yourself. The numbers there are for mental health resources, QR code to the Maui Recover site that has a list of different mental health resources for you as well. And, we haven't seen each other for a few weeks here. I think, the last 2 weeks we haven't had a meeting. So we wanted to catch everyone up on a few of the events that have happened. I believe last Monday we had a blessing at Kahoma Village. Hopefully these, this is a huge first step. This has been worked on for a long time. Huge step towards getting the 24 units that were destroyed rebuilt and getting everyone back home. So I want to share a few photos from that. And then last week we didn't have a meeting because we had one of our 2 open houses for the long-term recovery plan draft. I want to thank everyone who was able to come out. We had about 200 people show up between the 2 days on Wednesday and Saturday at Lahaina Luna. We had boards up that were highlighting 20 of the 40 projects that are in that plan. Had people there, as you can see, being able to talk to the project leads to get more information. And if you couldn't make it, There is an online version available on mauirecovers.org/Lahaina. You can use that QR code or just put that web address in directly, and you can download a copy or view a copy of the entire draft. It is pretty meaty. It's 70 plus pages, but it goes really into depth on all the projects, gives you some background on how the plan was formed. And most importantly, it's where you can give your feedback. So some of you I know attended, maybe didn't have time to give feedback that day, maybe like, oh, I'll do it later. That's the site you're gonna go to give that feedback. And this will be up for a couple more weeks, but don't procrastinate, want to hear back from you what you think about the plan. The goal is to get a final version out before the end of the year. And I just want to make a note, Kate Blystone, who is our Director of Planning, and who also heads the group that helped formulate the plan to get it out there. She unfortunately was feeling under the weather today. She was supposed to come today and talk more about this, but she unfortunately can't make it today. So we hope to have her back next week to talk a little bit more about it. And last week, some of you may have heard there was an announced meeting scheduled for, I believe, next week for the King Kamehameha, the third elementary school meeting by the DOE. That has been changed. So the new date now is Tuesday, November 19th. Again, this is a meeting from the Hawaii Department of Education seeking community feedback on a new proposed up to 16-acre site in Ku'ia for the possible site to build Kamehameha Third Elementary School. You may remember a few weeks back, so the superintendent came and said, hey, there's a site that we can't really talk about yet. Well, this is it. So if you want to give your input and hear more about the possible site, please attend the meeting, and you can pre-register at that site there, bit.ly/KK I dash site. Just want to make sure you know it's I's, not L's. I've made that mistake before by accident. And that brings us to today's agenda. We have a mahalo to volunteers first up, for Lahaina Aquatic Center and other parks and rec venues. We also have HCL here to talk about their new, recently announced no-cost lot survey program. We also have FEMA here to speak on the recent extension of their programs and to kind of give more background on their programs. SBA is also here to speak about their programs, especially considering that there's deadlines that are approaching, so everyone has to be aware of that. And then we also have the Department of Environmental Management here to give an update, third quarter report on the temporary debris storage site, as well as the update on the permanent disposal site. And coming up next week, Kemoku Kapu has said he will come to present. He's been getting some questions about the cultural monitoring that has been going on with debris clearing. People have kind of asked him for a little bit more information, so he was graciously said that he would come and talk a little bit more about that, just to get everyone kind of an overview of the program. And then All Hands and Hearts will be here to give an update on their ineligible debris removal service. And Mayor Bisson, unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight. Some of you may know he's in Japan right now. With the was Kibu? Okay, Kibo? Yeah, Kibo for Maui. I'm sorry, I mispronounced that name. It was, if you remember, a couple months ago, he and a delegation from the county went to Japan to, kind of learn from the government there about, about how their disaster relief from the earthquake and tsunami from 2011. So this is a continuation of that. So he is back there, and I'm sure he'll report out what he learned and more about that next week, hopefully. And so we have Tamara Paulton.
Thank you. Aloha mai kako. Just a update from the legislative branch. The first thing I wanted to emphasize is that the Kaiaulu o Kukuya should be opening up to the first residents sometimes next month, and around November 15th or so. They have been getting a lot of declines, and I'm not sure if it's because the state is offering free rent or FEMA has been offering free rent, but I just wanted to urge folks that this is close to a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for those in the 60% and below area median income category. So if you do get offered a housing, I just would recommend you take it, because the temporary rent-free options are just that, temporary, and this is a permanent. They had 100 2-bedrooms, 75 3-bedrooms, and 25 4-bedrooms for those making 60% and below the area median income. We pulled 900 names, and they've gone through that. So it may be reopening. If you know anyone in those categories, tell them keep an eye out. Other than that, yesterday we passed out of committee. It still needs to go to first and second reading to extend the property tax relief for the next fiscal year that we've had in the burn zone this past year. So everybody that got that property tax relief this past year, anyone in the burn zone that didn't have to pay taxes, that's been extended for another year through committee. It still needs first and second reading, but I don't see it changing because it was unanimous. What else? There will be a public hearing coming up shortly also regarding the Department of Parks and Recreation's request for a bill to resume using pesticides at the county golf course and the kids playing field. So it was kind of contentious in committee, and everybody in that committee was supportive of having a public hearing to hear from the community if they want the county to be able to continue to use pesticides in our Keikis playing fields and in the Wai'ehu golf course. Today, we had a presentation about the West Maui Hospital. They were asking the county to be a guarantor of the state special purpose revenue bond, and it was shared with us by the administration that they don't believe that that's something they can do because there's no law allowing for it. But they will be continuing on the discussion because the West Maui Hospital is one of the projects in the long-term recovery plan. They did mention maybe not at that site, maybe not with those partners. I'm not sure what it all means, but they've committed to continuing on the discussion. For Pulelehua, they're still waiting for seaworm approval to utilize the water sources that they have identified. They have 2 wells that would need a polishing plant, and they also have a contract for 1 million gallons of ditch water from Maui Land and Pine that has priority over the ditch water that they're using for their golf course and their luxury home irrigation. But both of those sources need seaworm approval, and they haven't begun the process yet of processing the water use permit applications that they've received. And we're having a little bit of trouble with the independent nomination board. We still have 37 vacancies on boards and commissions, and so that charter amendment hasn't been working out so well, and we're just working our way through that. So that's the update from the legislative side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, we also did hear Bill 105 that was brought by the administration, and that's regarding nonconformities. And the members of that committee had a lot of questions. We weren't clear what nonconformities were. It's not nonconformities from the building code, it's nonconformities from the zoning code. So things like parking requirements, setbacks, and that's all we really know. So that's why we asked for more information, as well as non-conforming uses to continue. The bill says 5 years, for 5 years, the non-conformities could be rebuilt if the bill passes from the governor's emergency proclamation, with an possible extension of 2 years if the director of planning finds that there's good cause to extend. And one of the other nonconformities that was brought up is, a lot of our churches are, they kind of predate the zoning laws. So they may have been put up in like a residential area, and so that was non-conforming. For Grace Baptist, because they were ready to go and in a rush, we went ahead and changed their zoning to public, quasi-public for church and accessory uses. Director Blystone asked me, please don't do that for every single church individually, and this non-conforming bill is one way to address all the churches at least. So sorry, I forgot that one. That was kind of big, but we sent a lot of questions to all the departments from the committee. They said give them about 3 weeks to get the questions answered back to us, and then we'll probably take it up the bill again.
Thank you. All right. And as you can see, Lieutenant Colonel Jones is not here tonight. He'll be back in a couple weeks, November 13th. But just wanted to share with you the USACE infographic. This is gets updated on MauiRecovers.org routinely. They send this over to us and we put it up. I think it's updated almost either every day, every couple days. So the big number there, 88% of the commercial properties are now cleared. So great news there. And if you want to see this, the exact URL is Maui. You can find it on MauiRecovers.org/recovery dashboard. You'll see this among some other stats as well. And we do have representatives from USACE here to answer your questions. Even though Colonel Jones is not here, they can answer your questions afterwards, after the meeting. And I can bring on Lake Hamian. Where is she? Oh, there she is. And then you have this one. Sorry.
I don't need that.
You
Do
want
I
me-
need that?
Just let me know.
Okay, you can just switch it. Thank you for the opportunity to publicly thank all those involved in getting the Aquatic Center open. So I am a community volunteer, and I want to first thank the county, especially Zeke, for getting us into contact with the right people to allow us to help get the pool, the skate park, and the batting cages open. It did take a lot of work, more work than I thought. But I really enjoyed seeing how organically everyone really wanted to help, and this was their second home for a lot of people. And to a lot of people, they told me that this was very healing for them. You know, a lot of them lost their homes, and while they were waiting, they were more than enthusiastic to help in rebuilding and opening their second homes, which was the Aquatic Center, the skate park, and the batting cages, Rec 1. Before I thank everyone, I wanted to actually preface this by saying that we did make sure that the testings were all done and all the right steps were done before we allowed community volunteers to come in. We had Red Lightning, who actually had subject matter experts who specialized in smoke remediation that made sure it was safe for us to allow community volunteers. And with that being said, the biggest support with the skate park was Mana Mentors. They held a one-day cleanup event with the batting cages. It was West Maui Little League. And with the pool, it was a much bigger project than we all realized, so it did take so many hands.
We had Naveo with West Maui Landscaping. We had Shayna Y with the Painters Union. We had Ian Hollingsworth with Imagine It Builder, Lahaina Swim Club, who provided a lot of the volunteer labor. And I want to thank Kim Ball, who's on the Mayor Advisory Board, who really pushed us to stay on track and get this open for the community as soon as possible, and his Sports Foundation. And I want to personally thank my family, my sister, my dad, and my children who jumped in there when they didn't even know that they had to. And it was such a pleasure working with the county and getting to know how the county works, and I really have a deep understanding for how it works. And I want to say a special mahalo to Zeke, Andre, and Chris with the county. Thank you.
And before she leaves the front area, and this wasn't planned, but I'm going to give her all the accolades she deserves. So folks, she was involved with the 2018 fire response. She was also, within the first month, working with Council Member Tamara Polton on coming in with Red Lightning to making sure that people had communication. And that was the first month and a half. You know, she was the driving force behind organizing all of the volunteers that came in, whether it was a skate park, whether it was making sure soil testing was done. They even went in and cleaned before Johnson Controls went in to start upgrading the pumps at the pool and putting in the chlorinators to turn the salt into the chemicals that we need, which inevitably saves the taxpayers money on that pool. Who's been in that pool since it's been open? Anyone? It's kind of nice, yeah? Yeah, it's nice because people like Like Mian put even her family aside at times to make sure that everything that needed to be done so that asset could be returned to the community was done. So folks, if we could please, all the accolades and applause goes to this incredible daughter of West Maui right here. So on behalf of the community, thank you for helping us give them back a necessary piece of what normalcy looks like. Like Mian.
Hi, my name is Maria Lins, and I work for Hawaii Community Lending, and I'm the program manager for the Lahaina Homeowner Recovery Program. Our program serves owner-occupied households. You had to have owned the home, lived in it at the time of the fire to be eligible for our program. And we do a couple things. We help with rebuild navigation, financial analysis. We bring you in and help you through the journey of rebuilding your home, because none of us thought we would have to be in this position and know how to do it. So my team's job is to learn how to do it so that you don't have to learn all the steps, and we can hold your hand and guide you through the way. We look at your finances, really figure out how much money is on the table, what do you have available, how much money do you need to rebuild, what is that gap in between, and then we look at all the options to find that filling the gap. For a lot of people, it looks like a construction loan. When a construction loan isn't going to work for people because they're not going to qualify, we're going to get really creative and look at every resource out there and try to find something. I tell people, be in our pipeline, because if we don't have what you need right now, we're going to keep looking and we're going to get really creative and try to find it. I make no guarantees, but we try really hard. We work really hard to fill in those blanks and meet the needs of people. One of the things we do is see through the data. When you come in, you enroll, you have to do a full intake process with us, and we look at all the things you're facing and what are the needs of the community. And then because we're a community lending company, we're not like a bank where you're stuck with very strict regulations. We do have regulations, but banks have a box and you gotta fit in the box, and if you don't, you're out. For us, we see the need and then we go fight for more funding. It's not easy, it's not fast, but we try really hard. And the most recent thing we were able to do is get funding for surveys for people within our program. This is not a separate part of the program. You must be enrolled in the program. You have to be owner occupied, so not everybody is going to qualify. You have to go through our regular intake process, but then the goal is to provide a no-cost survey. In order to do it, it's complicated to do hundreds of surveys. It's not going to be fast, so I don't want to set the expectation that you can magically get a survey on the day you need it. You're going to have to get together with your neighbors, and not literally you get together, encourage your neighbors to sign up. These surveys have to be done in groups of about 8 to 10 because it's the only way we can get the price down and make it affordable and help the most people as possible. So as you sign up, we will have a map that's like grouping them together, and as we see enough and we can make it happen, then we get the survey company to go do those. Surveys are a complicated process. I'm just learning about it, but it's not just them going out there with a tripod and looking and that's it. There's so much research that goes into it. And so when you do groups of homes together, they build upon each other. It's like knowing all the data from this house helps houses 4 houses down because it all compounds and becomes the info that's needed for your survey. So it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fast, but it is an amazing resource for those that it works for. If you are signed up for a survey already with someone else, I say stay on that list. But also, if you qualify for our program, get on our list because we don't know which one's going to happen first, and I want you to have whatever option works best for you. We've been getting a lot of questions. Will we be able to reimburse for surveys done already? We're trying to find out the answer. I'll let you know when we know. If you want reimbursement, sign up. Put in the notes of the application that you want reimbursement, and once we have an answer from our funders, because the grant was written a certain way, and so we have to meet, grants are very specific, so we have to get permission to change the grant. If we can do it, we will do what we can. That being said, doesn't mean we'll be able to reimburse the full amount. It might be up to the amount we're paying for surveys, because by doing them by bulk, we get the rate down. And then people are asking, can we do CULA properties? Again, we're trying to find out if we're going to be able to do that. Our goal is to help anyone we can. I can't make any promises, but we're working on that. To sign up for the program, you can go to our website, hawaiicommunitylending.com. Click the Maui relief part, and then it says apply now. Fill out the information there, and then know that if you are putting in numbers, because we have sections for like asking information about how much insurance money did you get, this or that. If you don't feel comfortable putting that in there, it's fine. Just put a 1 or leave it blank if it lets you. Do not put any commas or any other figures. It won't let you press submit. And then encourage your neighbors. We are doing a referral program just to help people get more people in so they can get their neighborhood done. You must be enrolled in the program, and then the people who sign up, your neighbors, have to also be eligible and be enrolled, and we'll give you a $100 grocery gift card to Foodland or Safeway for each person you refer. So if you tell someone to sign up, make them put your name, because people are signing up saying, my friend referred me. I'm like, I can't give a card to your friend because I don't know who they are. So let us know the details. We're trying really hard to help everybody we can. Does anyone have questions? We have to go meet a client because we never stop working. And so we're taking questions right now for us, if I can answer anything. If not, you can email us at lahaina@hawaiiancommunity.net or call the number on the website. Any questions? All right, thank you guys so much. Oh. Is there another microphone? You have a question?
If we could stop you for a second, because we're recording it, we need it to be live.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just trying to find out if you guys are involved with replacing some of the dirt. I need like about 10 trucks loads of dirt to fill in what I had taken out from the Army Corps of Engineers. I was going to ask him tonight, the commander or commandant, whatever he is, but I did ask him before, but he's not here tonight. So I was wondering, do you have any accommodations for that?
We don't right now,
Yeah,
but I'll
okay.
keep an eye out for a resource, because what I find is when people come and say, I need a thing, next week that resource walks in, and then we connect dots. So if I can find out anything, but our program specifically doesn't have a solution for that.
Okay, good. That answers it.
Anyone else?
Thank you. Just to clarify, if you've already had a survey done and you want to try to get reimbursed, do we still fill out the regular form? How do we let you know when we're filling out the form that we're not applying for the traditional one, we're trying for the reimbursement one?
Yes. There is a spot on there for comments. And so just in that box, say, I've already had a survey, I'm looking for reimbursement, and then I will put you in a certain category, and once we know that answer, we will let you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, thank you guys so much.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Shadi Monamzadeh. I am the Individual Assistance Branch Director with FEMA. So we wanted to talk to you today a little bit more about our rental assistance programs and our direct housing programs. We know there's a lot going on. We have a lot of different programs running concurrently, so we wanted to see if we can kind of clear up some questions and some confusion about all of our different programs and the different requirements for each of them. So I'm going to start by talking about kind of an overview of our programs and how they're different, and then after this I'll talk a bit about the extension as well that recently went through. So the Individuals and Households program is the overarching program for individual assistance, and within that we have housing assistance, which encompasses financial housing assistance and direct housing assistance. So financial housing assistance is the rental assistance as well as the continued rental assistance that people receive to help pay their rent if they have a unit that they've found. Then if someone's unable to find a unit, we have our direct housing program, which within that we have the direct lease, which I know everyone's very familiar with, as well as the alternative transportable temporary housing units, or ATTHUs, that we're putting either at the Kilohana group site, putting on people's primary property, if eligible and feasible, or finding these secondary sites to put units on, to put our direct housing households on. So I'm going to talk about each of these separately, but these are all the programs that we have going on here right now. We have more programs as a whole as individual assistance, but these are the ones that we're going to focus on because it's what's happening here on this event. But before I go into each one of those, I'm going to talk a bit about the one-year extension. We did recently approve a one-year extension to February 10, 2026. So that approval is for both the financial assistance, the rental assistance, and the direct housing, all of the different direct housing efforts that we're doing. So, yeah. So how that impacts our programs for CTHA, which is that continued rental assistance, that stays completely the same. It's still at 175% of the fair market rent. I'll go into that in a little bit, but if you're receiving CTHA, nothing changes there as long as you continue to meet the eligibility requirements. For direct housing, for households that are in our direct housing units, they will be required to start paying rent on the units starting March 1st of 2025. So the rental amounts are generally at 100% of the fair market rent set by HUD. That said, we do consider rent reduction for households that have a financial hardship. So we will be working proactively with direct housing households individually to determine that financial hardship, looking at their income, and if they meet those standards, they could be eligible for a rent reduction. But that will be done on a case-by-case basis with our direct housing households. And we'll be doing that way prior to March 1st. We're actually going to start notifying households as early as 90 days ahead. So starting next month, we'll be reaching out to them individually to let them know about the rent requirement and the extension. We'll be talking to them at 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, notifying them, but also communicating with them verbally with our caseworkers. So, stepping back a bit, going specifically into rental assistance. So we have initial rental assistance, which provides 2 months of rental assistance funding. That's at 100% of the fair market rent set by HUD. And if someone doesn't have insurance, that automatically kicks in. So a lot of people probably already received that. For households who do have insurance and have additional living expenses or loss of use benefits, from that and their insurance company, they do have to show proof of exhaustion before they're eligible for rental assistance. And that's specific to just the rental assistance program and CTHA. So once they provide that proof of exhaustion, they can first receive initial rental assistance. And then once those 2 months are expended, they can qualify for continued temporary housing assistance, or CTHA. That provides 3 months of benefits at a time at 175% of the fair market rent sent by HUD. And there is an application process. They have to show financial burdens, so looking at both income prior to the disaster and after the disaster, and living expenses prior to the disaster and after the disaster. So that's the difference between the two programs. Initial comes first, and then CTHA. And you can continue to receive CTHA as long as you continue to provide that documentation and meet the eligibility requirements, which I'll go into in a second as well. But first I wanted to kind of point out the timeline. We want to be sure that people are aware of the ideal timeframes in submitting documentation to avoid any gaps in benefits between the exhaustion of ALE and getting rental assistance and getting a CTHA. So, and the dates here are hypothetical, but say your rent is due on October 1st, it's your last ALE benefit. If you provide that, you pay your rent on October 1st with ALE, you start providing that proof of exhaustion to us and the application and all the documentation to us on October 2nd. That gives the most amount of time so that we can process that application, and we can do it fairly quickly as long as we have all the documentation that we need to support it. Then you'll receive that, well actually that's for CTHA, sorry. If you provide that proof of exhaustion, then you can get that initial rental assistance to pay for November rent and December rent, and then December 2nd, show that proof of exhaustion of that rental assistance, initial rental assistance, and then you can start applying for continued temporary housing assistance or CTHA, and that'll give you for the next 3 months. So as soon as you can start providing that documentation, the better. We can start processing as soon as we can. So some conditions of eligibility for CTHA, you have to have received initial rental assistance and exhausted that on your rent. Show that you're unable to return to your pre-disaster residence, show that financial ability that I talked about, pre-disaster financial ability compared to post-disaster financial ability, and show that you're not make sure you're not receiving any other forms of financial assistance, as we can't duplicate benefits you're already receiving. And the documentation required for your CTHA application, the current lease or rental agreement that you have that you're spending your CTHA on, proof of exhaustion of the initial rental assistance, as I talked about, proof of pre-disaster housing costs, and proof of pre-disaster and current post-disaster income for all members over 18. And if you have any questions about this, we do have staff at the CNHA office, at the Lahaina Gateway, who can answer your questions about specific documentation specific to your case. And we do also have staff here tonight if you have additional questions, but I'll get into that in a second too. Moving on from rental assistance, sorry, I know it's a lot of information, but moving on to direct housing. So right now we have 1,290, actually as of today it's 1,289, but households eligible for direct housing. We have licensed in 1,000, we currently have 1,187 households in units. That's because we've had 50 households move out of direct lease units and onto their permanent housing solution as they found their long-term solution. But those 1,187 are currently in direct lease units. We do have the Kilohana group site coming along, and we'll be opening late next month. We have 53 households that have the priority placements there. 36 of those are in the hotel programs currently, still being sheltered in hotels. So we are going to be licensing in those households first, making sure that they have their interim housing solution. From there, we are looking at households that were licensed into direct lease units outside of West Maui, because we have an initiative to bring back as many households who we can and who are interested in coming back to the Lahaina area, bringing them back from other parts of Maui where we've licensed them in. So the remaining spots at Kilohana will go to those households. As well, we have the primary private sites. We are assessing property owners' properties and to place an ATTHU on their primary property. As well, we're looking at secondary sites to place ATTHUs on to put direct housing households in. All those will be households licensed in outside of West Maui. So I'll go into those in more detail and kind of explain the differences in a second. But I did want to talk about the eligibility requirements for direct housing as a whole. So all 4 of those that I mentioned are direct housing programs, so all the eligibility requirements are the same for those for households in direct housing. They must meet the general individuals and households program eligibility requirements. That's like identity verification, proof of occupancy or ownership. They must, in order to have fallen into what we call the pre-placement interview queue, which is when we called people who might potentially be eligible for direct housing to assess their situation and their need. For renters, they would have to show at least major damage or destroyed. For owners, it's $12 per square foot of damage. With a wildfire, that often people do meet that threshold because of the extent of damage that fires do cause. They have to, from there, they complete that pre-placement interview process. We call them, we assess their need, ask them some questions. And when people fell out of eligibility at this point, it was typically because they already found a housing resource. They already had a rental that they were renting and weren't interested in our program. Or, we offered it to them and they declined. So not everybody wants to go into direct housing. We don't force people to go into it. But those were the typical reasons why people were no longer eligible at that stage. I do want to stress that insurance is not a criteria we look at for eligibility for direct housing. So if someone has insurance, if they have ALE, additional living expenses, they can still qualify for direct housing, and they have. The only caveat to that is households with ALE must pay rent on the units that they're in until those benefits have been exhausted. Once they show that proof of exhaustion and they've spent all of it, then they wouldn't no longer have to. Caveat to that, though, is that with the extension beginning March 1st, everyone in direct housing has to pay rent regardless of whether or not they had insurance, and for all different forms of direct housing. Based on the 100% fair market rents and financial ability that I talked about a second ago. I did want to do a focus on insurance households because there's a lot of questions around that, a lot of confusion around that. So there's a couple different pathways that people with insurance who had ALE could have gone. So a lot of people had ALE, they found the resource on their own, and they spent those ALE funds on rent on that unit. If they show that proof of exhaustion, they can remain in that unit and use the rental assistance, initial rental assistance, and then subsequently CTHA to continue to pay rent on the unit and stay where they are. If they couldn't find a unit on their own, they could go into our direct housing program, utilize ALE or LOU to pay the rent on the FEMA unit until those benefits are exhausted. And they could have gone into direct lease, or they could go into the ATTHUs just depending on their individual circumstance. If someone was in their own identified resource, they were using ALE to pay, they've run out of that ALE, and for whatever reason they can't stay in the place that they're in, we encourage them to come talk to us. We have staff at the CNHA office, we have staff at the Lahaina Gateway, we have staff here tonight, we have our helpline. Call us, and we are looking at it on a case-by-case basis. To dive a little bit into the private sites versus the secondary sites, and just explaining kind of the differences. As I mentioned before, we are working to return households that were licensed in to direct lease units outside of West Maui back into the Lahaina area, back to West Maui. So this is a couple ways that we're doing it. With the private sites, these are for households who are eligible for direct housing. They're owners in their primary property. And we're assessing their site for feasibility and placing an ATTHU on that property for them to live on themselves. The property must be a sufficient size for the ATTHU itself and rebuild of their home. We don't want to prevent people from rebuilding their permanent home because all our direct housing programs, they're temporary programs. The goal is to help people get to their permanent housing solution. And the household is, of course, subject to all normal direct housing requirements, including the recertification process. Direct housing households are required to recertify for direct housing every 30 days, and then the rent requirement that I talked about. For the secondary sites, so this is different. We are seeking to lease vacant secondary properties, not where people primarily live. They're secondary properties maybe that they rented out previously, and now it's a vacant space, to place an ATTHU, or at least 2 ATTHUs, to put direct housing eligible households into. So it has to be sufficient size to place at least 2 of those units. And if selected, it goes through a feasibility process, but the property owner must agree not to rebuild on that property for at least 2 to 3 years. And the property owner may not enter the land, they may not do anything with the land because we're leasing that property specifically to put the ATTHU on and to put direct housing eligible households into. And we determine which household goes into those units that we're placing on the leased property. And we are prioritizing properties that have functional utilities already. But we are considering, anything. We're considering properties in the West Maui area, so I'll put a contact if anybody is interested in more information on that. But that's the difference between the primary private sites and the secondary sites. Some similarities in terms of site feasibility for placing a unit. The damaged dwelling can't be in a high hazard coastal floodplain. The owner of the property must verify that they are in fact the owner of the property. And the property owner has to give us right of entry permissions, and the site must have sufficient access so that we can safely deliver, install, and maintain, and then remove the ATTHU. And it must meet the zoning requirements for an ATTHU. And finally, it must be cleared of debris and other obstacles that would prevent placement of the ATTHU. We have gotten a lot of questions as to how did we decide who to contact for the primary private sites, so households that are being licensed into an ATTHU on their primary property. We started by looking at all the owners that are eligible for direct housing in our program currently. We took out some that were owned in condos because that wouldn't be a feasible site, so really looking at properties that someone owns individually. We did a call out to those. 59 of those households were interested in the program. We did feasibility assessments on those 59 properties. 43 of them were infeasible, and that was generally, by and large, just the size of the property wasn't big enough for the ATTHU and to rebuild the home. We did have a few, 7 that were feasible, and we have 6 that are kind of in a pending status that we're working with the county on to see if they could be made feasible. And 3 households have appealed their infeasibility. These are the ATTHUs that are going into the Key Lahaina Group site. It will be one of these ATTHUs that will go into the primary properties and the secondary properties. We don't know which ones. I know we've presented this in a few previous community meetings, but these are what they look like, and coming from 3 different vendors. And they are designed to meet all the ADA requirements, including grab bar. We can make modifications like grab bars, roll-in showers, ramps, platform steps, just depending on what the household needs. As always, we always like to make a plug for all the ways that you can contact us. We have our general line that if you have questions about financial assistance, you can call. We have our direct housing line specific to here to this event. And please, if you're calling that line and you get the message machine, please leave a message. We will call you back within a day. Just want to make sure everyone's leaving a message. And we do have staff at the Lahaina Gateway and at the CNHA office. And then if you're a property owner that is interested in the secondary site in leasing your property potentially to us, please contact this email here, FEMA-R9-housing@FEMA.dhs.gov, and we'll begin the process from there and explain, look into feasibility and explain the program from there. And that's it for me. We'll be here to answer any questions. And again, we have staff here tonight to answer questions specific to your case. Thank you.
Do the right click. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Barbara Nidis. I represent the U.S. Small Business Administration, Office of Disaster Recovery and Resilience. I'm a public information officer. So during the disaster, presidential, FEMA, and SBA help out. We help out as far as low-interest disaster loans. And for FEMA, we offer, as you know, grant assistance. So we help out in rebuilding and recovery. So people always assume that we only help out businesses out there, but we help out homeowners, renters, businesses, and nonprofit organizations. So SBA is the largest source of funds for privately damaged properties post-disaster. As you know, we help out renters, homeowners, businesses of all sizes, most private nonprofits. 80% of our loans, believe it or not, are coming from homeowners and renters. Funds directly come from the U.S. Treasury, and the program is for the uninsured and underinsured losses. That's where we come in. We fill in that gap. So for home loans, we offer up to $500,000 to repair or replace physical damage to your primary residence. Now, if your secondary home is exception, if it is an Airbnb and you're a landlord, that's considered a business. So it'll be up to $2 million, okay? For a renter, you can receive up to $100,000 for personal property, anything that's inside the home and your primary car. And for the homeowner as well, they can receive that $100,000 for personal property, anything that's inside as well, and the primary car. But only for renters, they can receive is at the $100,000. For mitigation funds, this is where in the rebuilding, it's on your loan. It's up to 20% of your total damage. This is really to help you in all types of disasters, not just fire, to prevent as far as, steel roof is one example of a mitigation. So anything that, I'll show you in one slide that shows a little bit of things that you do to prepare your home for future. And for businesses, it's up to $2 million to repair or replace physical damage to your real estate, machinery, equipment, inventory that was affected during the fires, and as well as economic injury. That deadline is coming up right now, November 9th. But after that, you would have to provide a justification, basically a written explanation of to why you were not able to apply during that deadline. And that is a working capital loan to really help you out with your economic losses, anything that suffered during the disaster. If you were closed, of course, anything that's really to keep your business afloat. So this is the interest rates are fixed, okay? The terms are up to 15 to 30 years, but the maximum is 30 years. The first disbursement, it goes by the date of your initial disbursement, okay? So if you're not ready to receive the funds, you have up to 24 months. So you have that beneficial, it's basically your backup right there. And as far as it's 18, so as far as it's 0% interest up to 12 months, and it's zero, and basically after that, it's the 6 month of interest, but you don't have to pay. You have up to 18 months overall, okay? So 12 months, 0%, no accrual, and then the 6 month is accrual, okay? Until you have that time, a date of that. So most of our loans are approved by the lower rate, and for a home loan as low as 2.5%, as low as. For a business as low as 4%, and that's involved with economic injury. So you do not need to have physical damage to your business. You could just apply for economic injury and vice versa, or 2-in-1, up to $2 million. For a nonprofit, as low as 2.37%. And this really explains about how the declaration is. It's August 8th through September 30th are eligible, and it's for Maui County. And this is where it explains on the bottom that for late applications, we're still accepting for homeowners, renters, businesses, and nonprofits for physical damage. Just need to provide a justification for the physical damage loans, but for the economic injury, you have till November 9th. You also can they just give you, as far as the customer service number, you can visit our centers. We're also at the CNHA building, as well as the Gateway, and also the Kihei and Kahului, and also that. I have all the slide on the next slide. So these are the requirements typically when you go to the centers, or you can do it online as well. You just need to, when you do fill it out, you just use your driver's license as far as your identification, and then you'll fill out a 405 6C, which is for your taxes. It's a tax transcript to look up as far as, because it is a loan. So for homeowners and renters, if you do get denied, you can get referred back to FEMA. And one of the reasons is lack of repaymentability. So if you do follow through with that process, you can see at least other needs assistance. That's where it comes into play. So there is on the loan, there is a refinance option as well as the relocation. It goes to whatever you choose to do. A lot of people, so as far as I give you an example, business didn't choose to wait as far as the rebuild because they were in a certain area, and they choose to move to Kihei for one example for that. But for a refinance, you have a prior mortgage and it covers up to, you can get the low interest rate as low as 2.5%. So just give you all the options on the loan. Businesses is the same thing. They look at you just need to go to the center, you provide and you have to still fill out the IRS form, which is the tax transcript. Here's the mitigation that I was telling you about, up to 20% on your loan. And right now, as far as flood mitigation, all these apply. You can use that in your phone. And one example is really a metal roof, for example, debris, remove certain things that you don't think of as far as a disaster you should utilize in your home. And here's are the centers that we're all located with the hours of operations. Like I said, we're at the Maui Research and Technology Center at 590 Lapoa Parkway, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. Customer service are there to help you out. You can ask for status, apply, and also you do not need to, if you have been denied on your current application, you do not need to reapply. You can ask for reconsideration. And a lot of people have come to me if they were not ready at the time last year and they had their loan on hold. It was basically withdrawn. You can do a reinstatement on your current application. And if you are, so we're here to accommodate everybody in that. And any questions you can ask me, and also I can guide you through the process. So here, there's the ants, and there's also the gateway that I told you about, and the one main plaza, the Business Resource Assessment Center. That's also Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 p.m. So you understand that's also, there's Small Business Development Center there. Other resources, provides business advising, startups, also helps out nonprofits in disaster and guiding you through business planning to help you recover. So that's where we come into play to give you those free resources out there. So at least you have all that. But homeowners can go there too, it doesn't matter. Just telling you the resource partners. And here it is where you can apply. So it's sba.gov/disaster. You can also call at 1-800-659-2955. And you can also email at disastercustomerservice@sba.gov. So that's it. Thank you. Mahalo.
Aloha, my name is Bob Schmidt, Deputy Director of the Department of Environmental Management, and I'm here tonight to give you an overview of the third quarterly report for the temporary debris site. The third quarterly report was due on 10/17. We were prepared to come 2 weeks ago, but then that meeting got canceled, so we're here tonight. The quarterly reports were part of the requirements of Bill 120 that was effective on January 21st. The council gave quite a few mandates on monitoring and kind of openness and transparency for the whole temporary debris site operation. And all of this information I'm giving you is posted on the Maui Recovers website. And this entire report has been posted by the deadline 2 weeks ago. Some of the reporting requirements, what's on the website is design construction documents, operating plans, emergency response plan, the sampling and analysis plan, stormwater pollution and prevention plan. It's quite extensive. The air monitoring plan, summary reports, including this third report, and then all of the monitoring data besides. One of the important concerns is air quality. The entire operation is done with 4 constant air monitors, and through the entire operation, no action levels have been detected. Dust control is so important that they actually set guidelines. If the winds become high and are sustained, they close down the operation, and that's been done a few times, but hasn't been done in this last 90-day period. Leachate monitoring is also important. Leachate is where the rainwater falls on the lined area, so potentially came in contact with the debris. And all that is captured into a receiving pond. They're able to use it, again, for dust control. They pump it out and put it back on the debris mass, and that's how they empty that basin. And each time that basin catches water, it's tested for particular constituents. The constituents of concern are the yellow, the cobalt, copper, arsenic, and lead, and no high or surprising results have been found to date. And there's been 6 events where that's happened, where there's been rain that's collected in that basin. And again, no constituents of concern. Stormwater is another concern. Stormwater, the site was designed so that stormwater cannot enter into the lined area. It's directed around it and off the hillside. And best management practices to keep the stormwater as debris and solids free as possible as it leaves the site. There's been 2 monitoring wells put in, one up gradient, uphill, one down gradient below, just to check that no constituents are escaping the liner, just another double check. Initial samples were done back when the wells were first put in. And a second sampling has been done, but the results aren't yet posted. But the first results are on the website, and for a lot of constituents. And again, no concerns, no issues were found. As I mentioned earlier, all of this is on the Maui Recovers website /debris containment. You'll see the entirety of Bill 120, all of the site monitoring data, the quarter reports, all of the plans that I'd mentioned, and then all of the monitoring data is there. And in addition to that site, the State Department of Health actually has their own site that has information regarding the disaster, air quality, ash and debris data, and then they also have their own TDS site. So there's another opportunity if you want to see a whole lot of information. That sums up that part. I also want to tell you about the planning for the TDS, temporary debris site to permanent debris site plan that's been ongoing, the development of this plan for months already. This is also on the website, the draft as of the 7/17 update. As you know, the TDS temporary was always meant to be temporary, and so we need to make a plan to move the debris. And part of the success of the TDS operation and the debris removal in general was the careful planning, the careful engineering and all of the particulars that I've already explained, and we want to do that same planning for the movement of the debris to its permanent site. Of course, land acquisition is still underway, but we already have a draft report that we're going to submit to the Department of Health for the permanent debris site once we get the permanent location. Current projections are to start moving the debris sometime in 25. We should have clarity on a little bit more accurate estimate soon. Part of the plan is to ensure the transportation safety and safety at every stage along the way. This plan's been in development by Army Corps of Engineers and the county, again, for months already. All safety and environmental considerations for the load out of the ash from the TDS site, the transportation in the trucks and the unloading at the disposal area, and everything in between. Also, it's going to be a plan to close out the temporary debris site. All equipment in the line areas will be removed. There'll be testing and then return the whole site to as close to previous as can. The transfer route, in order to alleviate traffic pressures through central Maui, we're planning on developing some cane haul roads to keep traffic off the highways and off of some of the busy intersections in central Maui. And that's going to be a big task. We've got to do improvements on the haul road. We're negotiating with FEMA and Army Corps on who's going to do what improvements. But that partnership is moving forward, and that's the current plan. So once the debris is all moved to the temporary debris site, there'll be a period of time where they're going to have to kind of temporarily close it, and we're going to have a little bit of stewardship there just to have it put to rest for a bit until we get the permanent debris site developed and ready to start moving the material. And all those details will be worked out into the plan. Once the debris starts moving, the estimate is approximately 12 to 18 months to get it all moved. And once it starts moving, there'll be an Army Corps hotline available for inquiries or issues for the public to report. And we're considering a Maui hotline as well, Maui County, for people to report any concerns as the traffic's moved. A lot of details are going to need to go into the plan. This is the current table of contents we hope to develop. And again, it talks about site control at the TDS, how it's going to get mined out, loaded into trucks, all of the environmental controls, how it's going to move across from the TDS to the PDS. We're going to try to do a contingency plan for every conceivable potential problem with weather, fire, accidents, spills, breakdowns, injuries, etc., and try to put the plan together ahead of any of those issues coming to pass. And then, of course, offloading it at the Central Maui landfill. And then, as I already mentioned, the closing of the temporary debris site and putting it back to original state. Ongoing meetings happening weekly for all these issues. The first on the list is a multi-agency group, FEMA, USACE, Department of Health, and the county. And that first meeting happening weekly is all about public information. We update the Maui Recovers website as often as new information comes to light. All of these organizations give us any new information, and we put that together and report it out so you folks are in the know and we have full transparency. Also, another meeting happens on just managing the temporary debris site. Even though it's going really smooth, part of the reason it's going smooth is we have multi-agency meetings to ask questions, any concerns, any concerns for upcoming weather. I mean, all of the potential contingencies, and that's part of why we have success is all of the involvement of the different agencies. And then thirdly, there's a meeting to continue to develop the temporary debris site to permanent debris site plan. One of the takeaways of the TDS success, multiple thousands of truckloads have traveled to and from the debris cleanup site to the TDS. There's been no incidents, no accidents, environmental or personal. It's been an amazing effort, and Army Corps of Engineers is a huge part of that success. And as a community member, I'm grateful. That's all I have. Mahalo.
All right, we'll open up for questions. I apologize, we are a little short-staffed today, so we don't really have, if you have a question that you don't think that any of our speakers can answer, we'll try to keep track of those questions and try to get answers for you for next week. But anyone have any questions? Oh, right
there. My question is for FEMA. Sorry, Shadi, I blinked. I was going to call you by your name. So my first question is, will Kilo Hana also start paying rent in March, even though they're not there yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the rent requirement is for all direct housing programs, regardless of which type of unit you're in. So the ATTQs at Kilo Hana will also be paying rent.
Okay, and my other question is, what are you considering 100% fair market rate? Is that based on now that FEMA is here, or is that based on previous rents?
It's based on the fair market rent set by HUD, Housing and Urban Development. So for a one-bedroom, $1,762. For a two-bedroom, $2,309. For a 3-bedroom, 3,103, and for a 4-bedroom, 3,584. So it's based on the number of bedrooms in the unit and set by HUD.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
Any more questions? Oh, right there.
Yeah, hi. I just want to expand on the question that was just asked. As far as the HUD, when you're referring to when they have to pay rent, because this is, like you said, it's all encompassing, right? Whether it's direct leasing, whether it's CTA, whatever the acronym you used, come March. When they have to pay rent, are you saying they have to pay rent on the fair market HUD price? I just want to make sure that I understood what you're saying. Is that correct?
Right. It's for direct housing, not CTHA, that's a separate program, but yeah, direct lease and the ACTHUs, it's the fair market rent set by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD. It's Googleable, you can look online, but the numbers I just
I just want to make sure that I understand. So when that expires, when FEMA stops paying direct leasing, so forth, it's the amount of money you have to pay for rent is based on the fair market HUD, correct? That's all.
It is,
okay.
and to clarify, we don't stop paying for direct leasing. Our agreements with the property owners are separate. This is those people in our units, the direct housing survivors paying rent to us.
Oh, so direct leasing is different than what we were just referring to right now.
It's in term for the households in direct housing, they'll be paying the fair market rent set by HUD to FEMA.
So like if the rent is $7,600, you're only going to charge them what the fair market value is what you're kind of saying?
Right. Whatever our agreement with the property owner is, it's not impacted. That's completely separate. For direct lease, that's correct. There are homeowners in direct housing, in our direct lease units.
Thank you for that clarification. I just want to let you know, we're still falling through the cracks. There was a very beautiful explanation on what it is, but homeowners that are trying to get continued rental assistance also use that fair market rate, that HUD formula. And we will continue to tell you that that calculation is flawed because it's not a fair market on this island. You guys set a new rental rate because you had to. We're not disqualifying that. You were held with a gun to your head to pay these rates, but it raised everything. So when we are coming to ask for help and you're using an antiquated formula, homeowners are being forced to make up the difference. So anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000 is what we can qualify for. Anything outside of that, where do you guys think we're going to get the money? It's coming from our rebuild. So the longer that we have to pay this extra amounts, these inflated rates, the less likely we can build the bedrooms we need. He was in a 4-bedroom, I was in a 4-bedroom. If we've got a rent for the next 2 years using that calculation, we'll probably only build a 2-bedroom. And how does that get us back to what we lost? It is a flawed system, and you guys have to do whatever you can to help fix that. Not just for the disasters going forward, but this disaster now. You guys have created a secondary disaster. Not through the faults of your own, but we are in a secondary disaster, and it's rental assistance for homeowners. Now, the state had come in and said, if you need help, come and sign up for Kala'iola. Come and get onto the state housing list. So a lot of the homeowners did that. And we were qualified. We were eligible to be on Kalaiola's waiting list. A lot of us are large families, so we're waiting for a 3-bedroom home. That's not going to come till probably the end of the site. So why? And this is for Joe Campos. I'm hoping that you guys can get him to the next meeting. Why is it that when I walked into the Lahaina Recovery Center and checked the status on Kalaiola, my state application, because I'm running out of a house and I need to be able to move into something, and I'm hoping that that's my fail-safe. Why is it that I was eligible when I signed up, but I'm no longer eligible for state housing, and I'm only eligible for FEMA housing after the governor extended the FEMA help? So what I'm researching myself is that homeowners who were deemed eligible to be at the Kalaiola site are now going to be told they're not eligible and go back to FEMA. But FEMA's not even ready to intake homeowners as well, especially ones that have to have 3-bedroom units. These units aren't going to come for a while. And so when we come to these meetings and we say that homeowners are falling through the cracks, listen to us. You have the data already. You guys can make a justification to change this policy using the FMR. You guys are paying insane rates. You guys can go back through your rental histories with the landlords that you had to make deals with and figure out that HUD fair market rate is not the fair market rate that you guys are paying. You can make the justification that this is a flawed system for this disaster and probably every other disaster going forward. But until then, we have to dip into our insurance funds to be able to exist on this island. And there's going to come a point when we have no funding left. You guys have told us, state and FEMA, now I'm talking to all of you, you guys have told us this entire disaster that there is no such thing as duplication of benefits. So we have gone out and we have exhausted our benefits. We didn't qualify for so many things because we were homeowners and we had insurance. We are now exhausted. However, if I was a homeowner that held on to my ALE LOU, it sounds like I would be disqualified for FEMA direct housing, but I could go and sign up for state housing at Kalaiola. I'm just trying to understand how all of this makes sense and how any of this is helpful. So, if you guys can come back with the state next week and help to explain this, because this is going to be a disaster for FEMA. FEMA is going to have 167 units available at Kilohana. And some of them are already spoken for because you guys have to move people. We get that. But now you're going to get a wave of homeowners coming over from Kalaiola because they're going to be telling them one by one when they go and check the status of their eligibility and their units that they're waiting for through the state site, that they're no longer qualified and go see FEMA for help. And I guarantee you there's more than 167 of us coming over for help. The other thing about rental assistance I want to explain, the thing that's really hard about hearing what you're saying is, I'm trying not to do this with rage. Continued rental assistance. If we come in for direct housing at Kilohana and we're able to get one of the 167 units, come March for a 3-bedroom, we could be paying $3,100 for that, paying you, FEMA, $3,100. But if we were to find housing on the island to rent, continued rental assistance, let's say I found something for $6,000 on the other side of the island. You would pay me $3,000, or actually more, because it's 175%. So you would pay me about $5,000, let's just make it even. You would pay me $5,000 to go rent this $6,000 house, and out of pocket, I would only pay $1,000. But if I want to stay in Lahaina and rent a unit from you, I gotta pay you $3,000. Why would anybody sign up for that? We're calculating our pennies to rebuild, right? The math isn't mathing, and I know you guys are trying your best to figure things out, but it doesn't make sense. And most of us are still paying our mortgages. So we do qualify for FEMA assistance because our income is, it's over 30% of our income, and that's kind of the threshold that we've been told is where we have to be if we're trying to get continued rental assistance. But it's just not mathing. And if somebody can help us with that, we'd be grateful. We're losing sleep. We're seeing each other in the stores, crying our eyes out. People are mentally breaking down because of this slow-moving secondary disaster that's happening. And at every single turn, it seems like it just keeps getting worse. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I know our programs are complex. It's true. And we, as you mentioned, CTHA, we can provide up to 175% of the fair market rents. But these are the policies of our programs, and we do have options available with direct housing. We are looking at, secondary properties to place ATTHUs on to put direct housing eligible households into so that we can bring more people back to the Lahaina area with that program. The formulas?
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to debate you, but I'm just understanding this because I was specific when I asked these questions. I'm a pretty educated person here. How do you expect to bring people back to Lahaina when you can't keep the people that are in Lahaina? And you're trying to bring people back into Lahaina where they're going to have to pay rent, again, the same formula that we just went over. I'm trying to understand the math here. I'm a pretty simple person, but I do understand math. And if someone has to come back here with the secondary home CTH, pay the $3,000 on top of the mortgage that they already are, and other bills that they have, it makes no sense. Other than the fact that we all want to stay on the west side. We all love this side. We have families on this side. Our kids are born and raised on this side. We have history on this side. And for your formulas, and for, I'm not directing at you directly, but the formulas that you guys have created, they're not complex. They're actually idiotic. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. They're completely off. And whoever created this, they're off. There is no way with the fair market HUD can you find a 4-bedroom here for $3,500. It is mathematically impossible on the west side. That is not a statement. That is a fact. How does someone determine that? I don't understand. And what Mikey did say was very eloquent was the fact that essentially, indirectly, FEMA is pushing all of us out of this side of the island. And we're fighting for our lives to stay here, but it's also having a traumatic effect not only on us as parents, but our kids, our dogs, everyone around us. And we see each other every day in the stores, and it is traumatic. And it's how long can we just continue to be traumatized over this? The whole policy with FEMA, Josh Green, and everyone was, hey, we're going to return you back to normalcy. When is that going to happen?
The rent requirement for direct housing households is part of statute. It is a requirement. We are looking at financial hardship, financial ability on a case-by-case basis, and we can do rent reduction from there.
Yeah, so I just want to understand one thing, because the rules that are implemented now are not the same, and please correct me if I'm wrong, than when the fires first occurred and everyone. Because I actually know personal homeowners that FEMA is renting their homes, and they're paying them a ton of money, and they just extended that. But yet, if we want to go into these homes now, there's all these other parameters that have either been implemented or it's just, they're not all the same rules, it seems like. And again, this isn't a made-up number. These are people that I actually know. So I'm trying to understand all this, and all I keep getting, and I get it, you have to go ahead and do the generic answer is FEMA's going to go ahead and we're doing this with the rental and this is a formula that's created. I get it, but man, I'm telling you, we're all coming to our end here. And it's very hard to start being civil at times when you're just so angry and frustrated and it's been burying deep inside of you and it's coming out only because we all feel helpless, that we've never felt this before because we've never had to navigate through these waters before. And it feels like that you guys aren't really supporting us. It's just these simple formulas that are so complex that we don't understand. But believe it or not, we do, and we just find them so antiquated and outdated. And I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm just trying to express to you the feelings that a lot of us have. And it's taken a huge toll on us. Thank you.
Hi, I assume that these formulas were established at some point in the past, and the situation here in Lahaina is very different. And I'm wondering if perhaps there's some kind of an emergency readjustment of these formulas that could be put into place or requested from HUD to specifically assist us here.
I mean, as I said, HUD is the one who sets the fair market rents. I mean, it is why we did apply for CTHA to go up to 175% of the fair market rent, but we don't have control over what HUD establishes as the fair market rent.
Just wondering if there's an emergency readjustment that can be requested from clients, that's all. I mean, every organization has something like that. And I'm just wondering if there's something like that here that we could
Not
sorry.
that
No, I'm just wondering if there's some emergency readjustment of those formulas that could be requested to the senior levels of HUD, given the situation in Lahaina. We understand that we are where we are now, but most organizations have enough flexibility to allow for that, and I'm just wondering if that's been considered, and if not, could it be? That's all.
Not that I'm aware of, but I can't speak for HUD.
I have a couple questions for you. On the rental assistance, when the ALE is exhausted, it's 2 months and then you reapply for another 3 months. Does it extend beyond the 5 months, or is that all the more?
Yes, it's for CTHA, you can reapply for an additional 3 months and then additional 3 months from there.
Thank you. And then the other one for the temporary houses put onto second properties, the person who owns the property can't go onto it. Will FEMA then do the landscaping then? I mean, does that mean that the property owner can't go in and put in a lawn and tree and hedge or whatever they want to do for landscaping?
We'll be maintaining the property while we're leasing it. And you know, if someone is determined feasible and has been considered, all of that will be explained, but the maintenance will be part of what we do.
Well, in the burn zone, there's like the trees and the hedges and the lawns are gone. So I guess my question is, would you be able to put those, is FEMA putting the lawn back in and hedges and trees, or are the property owner going to be able to do that so stuff can start growing? And because it's just barren right now, our whole neighborhood's gone. So that's my question is, I understand they'll maintain it, but there's nothing to maintain, there's nothing there. So would the homeowner be able to, or the property owner be able to plant some trees and put in some lawn and hedges?
No, we can't have the property owner going on and making changes while we have survivors living on the property in our units. We won't be returning it to the pre-disaster condition, the property itself. We're placing units on there for survivors to live in.
Okay, and then my other one is, if you're putting a temporary unit on your private property, like your residence, are you able to start rebuilding while it's there, or do you have to wait till the 3 years is 2 or 3 year commitment is up and then start rebuilding?
So for the primary private site, that 2 to 3 years, that's specific for the secondary sites, not the primary site. So if you're we're placing a unit on your property that's your primary property for you to live in, we do definitely want you to rebuild.
Okay, and then do we have to pay the market rate for if it's like a 2 or 3 bedroom, then does that person have to pay, like the property owner then have to pay you guys the rent for that while they're rebuilding their house then, if it's on their property? So you put a temporary unit on their property, resident property, and they can start rebuilding. In the meantime, they're living in it, but they have to pay you the fair market HUD value, is that correct?
Right, but pay the rent for the unit that they're living in.
Okay, thank you. I have not for you, but for Tamara Paulton. Should I wait and let everybody?
No, I can yield the floor.
Okay, Tamara, what exactly does CWORM stand for? Who is CWORM, and do you have a contact for them?
CWORM stands for Commission on Water Resource Management. They're under the Department of Land and Natural Resources. And I think Google would be the best. Just Google DLNR, Commission on Water Resource Management, or CWRM. It's a state entity, and so they'll have a state web page.
Okay, and so I like the idea of Cam 3 school being kind of where it's proposed on Kuya lands, because it's one more thing to cover the Kuya lands where the fires keep starting. So it's one more area that we know is going to be covered with something other than dead grass. But also on the other hand, it's kind of scary that it's going to be there because nothing's being done to mitigate the dry land out there, and CWORM's not allowing wells to be drilled, and there's no water source to do anything out there. So kind of what is the concept behind, do you know what's going on with their property so that if they did put the school there, it actually would be safe and not just, you know, more stuff to burn in the future?
I did meet with Kamehameha Schools Bishop Estates. They said that if that site is chosen for the school, you know, I think it would be a reallocation of the water at their previous site, King Kamehameha Third Elementary School. That water would follow the school, I imagine. If that's chosen as a location, their vision for that phase, I guess, of what they're planning, if it comes to fruition, was a Hawaiian learning space next to where the 16-acre King Kamehameha Third Elementary School would be, as well as multifamily affordable homes. They were thinking in the 60% and 80% range. I mentioned that we have 60% coming online, and many people can't afford that. Many people in West Maui make more than 60% AMI, and so they're not qualifying. So maybe the 80% might be better. Plus, my understanding is that the state is planning on rebuilding the government assisted housing, like Front Street Apartments, Lahaina Surf, P. Ilani Homes, David Malo, and all of those ones. And I think Front Street Apartments may have been 60% as low as well. So, you know, if we get some of the higher ones, then maybe more people that work and live in Lahaina could qualify for those rentals. But it's all conceptual. They have plans also. That's everything that they own under the bypass. They have conceptual plans for reforesting up at the top of their property into the watersheds to try and bring the rain line back down. I think a community garden plan along by where the memorials are, and other things as well. But you know, when I've met with Mr. Wong, I think he's the CEO, he emphasized that it's what the community would like. If the community doesn't want it, then they're not going to force it on the community. But they also see if they develop that area, it won't be fallow fields. And it's more so not new housing, but they're attempting to replace housing because of the whole situation with the ground and surface water special management area designation. So what I've been told, though, is that land swaps are not really a feasible way to go. They would rather have the people buy out and then pay or something like that. But I don't know that they've gotten that far in on the logistics of how it all would work out.
So you're saying the 200 acres that Kamehameha School owns below the bypass, that's all going to be developed? All 200 acres is going to have houses, school, and learning center?
If the community would like that.
So if the community doesn't like that, if we like the idea of the school and the learning center and the rest of it to be green, big, open space, park, whatever, how do they get water for that? Like, and if you do start, like, how are they supposed to get water if Seaworm is not allowing them to drill wells? If the
Seaworm allows wells to be drilled,
but you can't use the water.
But you can't use the water without approved application. But there has been talks also about which direction the R1 will go. That's probably a Mr. Schmidt question, but I think it's about 5+ years out. And in their plans, from what I understand, they could get it to the Wahikuli Reservoir because of a ditch system or something. But to get it all the way to south of Lahaina Luna Road has not yet been designed or estimated cost, or because our capital improvement program runs on a 6-year schedule. So I think we only have plans for 6 years out.
Then I have a question for Mr. Schmidt. What's it going to take to get the R1 water? The ditch system has been there since the 1800s. It's not rocket science to get it over through Lahaina Luna School all the way to the Kuia lands where the fires keep starting. What's it going to take to implement the plan where it goes to that and expedite it? If they would have done this in 1999 when the mills closed, we wouldn't have had our town burned down. So the idea that we're going to put off this 6 years from now to get water there could be another fire. There was 3 major fires on that property, you know, in within a less than 5-year period. So is there any way to expedite and put a priority on that project and get federal funding, state funding, county funding, and extend the water to Kuia land so we can get it irrigated and have a safe environment?
Yeah, I don't have a quick and easy answer for that, but I mean, R1 water, our first highest priority is to try to use R1 to replace potable water use to alleviate the water concerns. So where we can do that, we have a win-win. We have people able to build, we have water capacity for temporary and full-time housing. Those ideas for creating green belts and whatnot, those are all being vetted right now, and it's kind of a political decision as well as a community involvement decision on whether or not to change kind of our hierarchy of priorities, aiming the R1 towards potable water offset, and whether or not fire protection. Again, it's going to be a collaborative effort, and we as a department will respond in whatever direction that the community and the council decides.
And politically speaking, Councilmember Cook recently passed a resolution urging the administration to not just reserve the R1 water for the construction of affordable housing, but also for fire prevention, agriculture, cultural uses, and whatnot. So politically, the council has spoken. On a side note, if the county were to try to build out the 6 years in 1 year, that would be the entirety of our capital improvement program. So that means no other projects in no other departments, in no other districts. And I don't know that I have that much pull to make that kind of thing happen. Sorry.
So you reminded me I did have one more question regarding R1. So reading the plan this past week, I was very concerned about the fact that clearly says we have to do like 5 miles of piping. And believe me, like I very advocate for the R1 and everything, but in terms of 16-inch pipes and 5 miles and EV kupuna, I'm just concerned if, like, has that been thought out? Like, my biggest concern is we start and then immediately have to stop and there's nothing else that we can do, because that's how it works with EV kupuna.
Yeah, part of our regular permitting process is environmental permitting and archaeological. And so that all gets vetted and looked at hard about whether there's concerns in particular areas, and the design then works around those concerns. But that is definitely part of our permitting process with any project moving forward.
And if it goes along the ditch or inside of the ditch, that's an existing corridor.
All right, thank you. I just got word not too long ago, just for information, Joe Campos did say that he can't make next week's meeting, but he expects to be able to make the following week. So we'll have him come and talk more about the state housing project. Any other questions? Okay, one more. Okay. Oh.
Hello.
Oh,
hi. For FEMA again. My question, how long does a representative like yourself stay here in a position that you work in? Like, usually what I've seen over the last year, sorry, I'll give a little context, is that we've had many different faces answering these questions on behalf of FEMA. And I'm wondering, does this information that the community is giving to you now, do you take that to a supervisor, to a person who, do you pass it along? And then does that person possibly pass it along to their supervisor? Because it seems like the answer is like there's nothing that can be done, but sometimes I have seen over time that people that are in control of these things really are not aware. And it kind of discouraging to hear you not say that you'll at least pass that information along and not just give the same answer when you have community members here. Really, I'm listening as a mental health professional saying, like, this is very, very serious. Like, you're not hearing them.
So the length of time someone stays can vary. I myself have been in Hawaii since August of 2023. I also work, I can say we do pass on the information to higher ups. I am the individual assistance branch director. We have our federal coordinating officer here as well. So she's hearing this as well. And I work at region. We communicate with our regional administrator. He's very aware of everything that's happening. So we do pass the information up to leadership.
I have never heard a response from any of those. I don't know if you folks have, but I've never heard any FEMA representative come back to a meeting like this and give an update or a response that you have passed on the information. And why are they aware and doing nothing then? It's worse if they are aware.
Some of our policies are set by regulation and statute, so we cannot change it at our level or even at the regional level. It is in the law, so some of it can't be changed. What can be changed, we are doing everything we can to be flexible and create as many options as we can for the community within our guidelines.
I just wanted also quickly to mention just community members. There is on the FEMA website an area to call and make complaints. Nothing might not happen, but that there is a list of rights that FEMA clients have. And if you feel that the economic guidelines are not fair, that can be worthy to we don't have any proof that these people up there are aware.
Certainly welcome to do so.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. FEMA, you say that you folks deal with policy, yeah?
Sorry.
And HUD's control, right? Is that right or wrong?
The fair market rent is determined
No,
by
I'm talking
HUD.
about policies. I'm not talking about fair market value or whatever. It's about the rules and reg that you're under control with, right? Besides HUD, is there within the program that you folks have, do you folks have a council or authorized body that overlook all these, like a police, to look over the rules and reg? Do you folks have that?
So our regulations are set by Congress.
By Congress?
Yeah.
Okay, so through legislation, it can be revised, right?
Right, through legislation.
Okay, so why can't you folks have some sort of authorized body to intervene? Because what Mikey was saying is very, very accurate, and it is another disaster. But without going into it and looking into it and just pacifying us and letting it go by, it's just going to happen. And you folks going to have another problem on your hand. Why not take this situation now, getting into legislation or whatever, however you folks do it, and get it on a table and try to deal with it? Because you're only going to get one slap on your hand otherwise, or slap on the wrist. And I don't think that's fair. I think you folks are well educated, well knowledgeable to go farther than what you folks have for us over here. You folks can go all the way to the top and get it done. And I think, like I said, if you folks can go through legislation, I think that's the way to do it. Not tomorrow, not next year or long term, but now. Because if anything going to happen midterm. It ain't going to happen tomorrow. But if you start today, it may happen midterm. And we might still be in this situation, and you can kind of level the playing field. That's just my take of it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
We do communicate with the Congress people who reach out to us, and they're aware of concerns. And you're welcome to communicate with your congressional representatives as well if you have specific concerns.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a little hesitant to take the mic, but all the complaints that you guys have been making are valid, and we definitely wish we could do more. The biggest takeaway that I want you guys to know is the best thing that you can do is to focus on the individual needs. That's how our program is made. Keep in contact with FEMA, visit the centers. I have my computer back there. If you have issues with your individual case, come see me after this, and we'll work with you. We'll try to do our best to help you. We wish it was a quick fix for everybody, but the way the program is set up, it's an individual basis type of situation.
It might be dying, but I think we're okay to start. Thank you for that clarification. I do want to follow up with you, so please don't walk too far. So could you give some examples of what individual needs are? Because I think there's a lot of things that none of us know about necessarily that would qualify, because if you think about what everyone needs right now, like the number one thing people need is money. So is there some alternative offerings that you have that are equivalent to money in certain ways that people wouldn't know to ask for, because that is something that we've really dealt with these, especially FEMA agents over the phone, is just inconsistency in messaging. And so I think if you could maybe share with our community, like, what are some of those things that you would consider individual needs?
Great question. Number one, if you don't already have a disaster case manager, sign up. I know there's a wait list currently, but their goal is more long-term. They're trying to get you resources that are outside of FEMA. There are limits to the amount of assistance that we provide. So talk to your neighbors, find out what they're doing, apply to all the assistance that's out there. Don't just focus on what FEMA is offering. Call 211, let them know your individual needs, and they'll try to link you with other resources that may be available. You know, some of these religious groups, some of these nonprofits, they're out here, they're offering help. It's not all the same type of help. It just depends on what your needs are. But definitely disaster case management would be my go-to. They're here long-term. They're here to find out your individual needs.
Right. I think it's just, there's a bit of confusion with that, because for one, the disaster case management program, I mean, it's not what we were told it was going to be. It's not you get a case manager and that person is like with you for the interim, because we don't have enough funding for that. So if they can't help you in the moment, they close your case so that they can open a case for someone else. And so if you need something, you have to go back, ask them to reopen your case, and then you get whoever as your DCM. But more in terms of, there's differences between the agencies too. So I know someone who's with Family Life Center specifically asked for gas cards. That was all they could really think of that they need. And they were kind of like, oh, sorry, we can't help with that. But other agencies have provided that. So there's people that feel like they're missing out because they were given a DCM that doesn't work as hard to get them what they need, I guess. I don't know. I just want to share that experience with you, because it is really important to understand the actual on-the-ground experience that these people are having, especially with the 211 program.
Hi. Thank you for that. I know it's a comment, but I want to comment on the comment. So as of today, we have taken care of 5,000 households. Some of those cases have been closed because those cases, many of them, people have not called back. They have been contacted many, many times, and they have not gotten back to their caseworkers. Yes, there are gas cards that were given out by private organizations. The disaster case management program has been up since November, and they were counting on American Red Cross and FEMA. We're now all under one program. Our case managers, our disaster case managers, which are 4 different organizations, as well as our outreach care navigators, are now all under FEMA funding, but it is a state program. Right now, we have 1,500 active cases. So as we were growing, and as I have told you all, we're growing, and we are solidifying, and our foundation is getting stronger. As we are going through this process of Kalaiola, bringing more housing into this situation, the disaster case manager is a plethora of things, from child care to someone needing health care, to all the way up to housing. So if there has been, I have done my best, and we will continue to answer the call when we are reached out to say, this is not happening in your program. And you have done that with us. And we have done everything we can to make sure that these people that you are contacting us with are actually answering their phones or emails. It's interesting to me, out of the 100 cases that I had probably in the last month, there was only one that was actually not contacted. So you're making us better by coming to me, by coming to our our supervisors, our DHS supervisors and directors. You're helping us to make this program better. There is funding. We've just received more funding from FEMA. Now there's so much education that's happening, not only by FEMA, but by all of our partners. And it's taken a long time, but things have just ramped up in a big way. So thank you for being patient with us, and we're getting to that point. We're tipping the scales now. So what I would like to do is bring this back to my supervisors and say it's time for another presentation. Because as of today, I received quite a bit of information, not only on our resources. We have people on the ground with St. Vincent de Paul who are our trainers, who are our people, our resource people. And Paulo's there, and he can help with that resources. But now everything's moving much more smoothly than ever before. So if there's any more questions on the DCC or DCMP. Oh, let's have a mic on you.
So for the hello?
Yes.
For the DCM program, is it funded by FEMA or is it managed by FEMA? You
No,
said now
it is
all under
funded by FEMA.
Okay.
It is managed by the Department of Human Services. It's a state program.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I think that was probably the last question. So for tonight, wanted to wrap things up. Thank you again for everyone for coming, and just wanted to wish everyone a safe and happy Halloween tomorrow. Just a note, so everyone here will be here to answer questions. You can talk to them one-on-one. We're hanging back for a bit. Just a note, unlike when we were in the gym or the Lahaina Civic at the social hall, once we do close up the cafeteria, we ask that you do immediately leave the parking lot because we do have to lock up the gates. So we would really appreciate that. But again, we'll have people hang back a little bit and talk story with you guys if you need to for a bit here. So again, thank you very much, and we always remind you, MauiRecovers.org for the latest updates. Thank you.